Some people, I think some couples will kind of detach themselves from work and not worry about that. But when we're taking risks like that, you definitely need your spouse on board.
What did it look like for you when you jumped off into wholesaling?
Yeah, definitely tight. My wife and I are lucky enough that she makes a decent enough income with what I can supplement with. And we, like any couple does, when stuff changes like that, we pare down expenses and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, no, luckily she was able to provide the majority of what we needed. Yeah, well, we get all this stuff on the ground.
How did you convince her that this was a good idea?
That took a little bit, yeah. So she's in high-level generalities, right? Guys are typically the risk takers, and females typically aren't. Absolutely how my wife was. She has an accounting degree, very much by the book, risk-averse. So it took time of me genuinely asking her to listen to a few podcasts and read a couple articles so she could see what I was seeing and see these stories, and ran numbers with me and stuff until she was comfortable enough to the point where she was like, okay, let's see how it goes. And knock on wood, I haven't lost money on a deal yet, so I'm knock again. But that's helped with her perception of the industry.
That's really interesting. I think that's a key factor to maybe a handful of people that might listen to this. I hear so many times that a spouse, husband or wife, is not on board with what the husband or wife is trying to do. Yeah. You hear different approaches and people approach it differently, which is why I ask, because if your wife is not in that game, she may be really hesitant to let you take those risks. Yeah. For me, my wife, her father owned rental property. And so she kind of had a taste. She had not ever asked questions about it or had been interested in it or anything like that, but she knew her father owned rental property.
She knew it was a real thing, yeah.
Right. And so when I was looking to buy rental property, she was like, all right, I guess this is what people do, right? Like my father does it, he's done pretty well. So I bought the first one and I walked her through the numbers and was like, okay, so this is what just happened. This is what just happened to our net worth. This is just what happened to our cash. This is the risk we might have. This is what needs to happen next. This is the next step. But then once we completed that first project, luckily it ended up working out very well. Yeah. It was really moderate. It wasn't like a grand slam, but it was very smooth, just average project that anyone would like and appreciate. And she was like, okay. And I think my next one was bought 3 more, and she was like, and then it was walking her through the process, and then those worked out well, and then we bought some more and kind of kept building from there. But she got to see how that was pretty quickly changing our financial picture and things like that. But it definitely was, if she would have ever told me that she wasn't comfortable with it or anything like that, absolutely would have slowed down, helped her understand. And then if she would have said absolutely not, I would have figured out another way to make money. But it's interesting to see how people kind of get their spouse on board if there's any hesitancy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's super important too. Some people, I think some couples will kind of detach themselves from work and not worry about that. But when we're taking risks like that, you definitely need your spouse on board, because you're going to need support when stuff gets hard.
100%.
You don't need them hating on you even more. Yeah,
especially with kids. It's a whole different ball game at that point, because you can't go live in a van somewhere anymore. There was another guest of the podcast that actually made the point where we were talking about this. We were talking to their spouses about getting in the game, and some spouses were hesitant. And he made the point that a lot of people go to a conference or hear a podcast or read a book and they're so fired up, but their spouse wasn't at the conference and didn't read that book or didn't listen to that podcast. And it just sounds crazy. Yeah. And they're like, what are you talking about? We're not going to make $100,000 on, in a year, our first year doing it. I think your approach was very reasonable, where it's here's some information, digest it, and I'll help you, we'll walk through this together and see if this is something we want to do. Yeah.